A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to Survival of No Limits, once again. Once again, welcome to the new, well, not so new location anymore, because I've already talked about it a couple times, so let's just move on from that. But the real big importance here is that I've got a couple new subjects that I might be able to talk about here real quick before I get going, because it's unfortunately getting a lot colder out here than it pretty much used to be this year alone. So, man, I hate this, like, really badly. So, let's just get going with another new thing, bullet wounds. Yeah. I feel like it's prime time I talk a little bit more on that side of the story, because there's been tons of things relating to gun violence and bullets. So, I think the timing is perfect here to go ahead and talk a little bit about this and be honest about the whole thing. So, right off the bat, I might as well go on ahead and associate that guns are in fact a real danger, a threat to everybody, not just to the users, but also to other people, especially because they were supposed to be used as protection in case there are intruders, or in case there are people who apparently want to come in at a more domestic level. Everybody seems to have their own argument to how gun laws and gun violence should be taken over, and how they should also work. So of course, I can't necessarily do much about that kind of argument on my own, because it could be pointless. But I can at least agree that if you get hit by a bullet, no matter what kind of gun it is, or what kind of weapon it is that can fire a bullet, then you are going to be in for probably some of the worst pain imaginable. Hence, I mean, there's been worse than bullet wounds, but that's not to say that a bullet wound is just gigantic in terms of how painful it could possibly get. But the main thing is, well, they are probably some of the worst things you could probably get on your body. But, of course, we've had things that top it any day. I might as well just say real quick that having a bullet wound, first off, is going to lead to a lot of things. Bleeding, inflammation, possible infection, and definitely a lot of other complications that you could expect to get with most other things in life. So it seems like getting shot with a bullet is probably going to give you some of those same awful effects that you could get if you were to get some certain disease of some sorts. But aside from certain similarities and resemblances, it is without a doubt that a gun wound would not at all be a good thing, ever. But you can at least hope to have a lot of things to do in case you do end up having a bullet lodged in you. Except, of course, if there were times where you might get hit in a vital organ, maybe in the spine, which could either leave you paralyzed or bleeding out completely in seconds because of the aorta being in there. And then, of course, there would be times where you might get shot in the head, which could most likely take you out instantly. So, it's quite a travesty. But the big thing is that, well, having bullet wounds is not at least a problem. It is in fact a serious one, especially with all the things that I've already talked about and what else they could probably lead to. There's times where bullet wounds themselves could eventually lead to gangrene if they were left untreated, or sometimes other very serious problems here and there, septism and other sorts of conditions. But here's the thing. There can always be a way to relieve yourself of this sort of extreme pain. But you can only do so if you are in fact professional at this sort of art of healing yourself, no matter what kind of injury you might have. So of course, let's just take a look at some things that can relate to treating bullet wounds, no matter what kind they might be. For the most part, we can see bullet wounds as being somewhat of a simple fix. From being able to stop the bleeding, it could be as simple as probably cauterizing the wound, or possibly just using a tourniquet of some sorts to at least get some pressure put onto it. And then of course there are times where some tips have actually been leaked out to the public if there might be a time where a bullet wound would cause so much blood to leak out that you might end up passing out from exhaustion or from extreme blood loss. In that case, it would be wise to put your wounded part of your body with the blood coming out on a very hard, flat, solid object such as a dictionary or a table and lie down on top of it. If you do end up losing consciousness, then there will be a good chance that the kind of pressure that is exerted from the hard, flat surface that your wound is sitting on will allow the bleeding to slow down, at least, until you regain consciousness. So, of course, that's just one really good tip out there that I was able to find out myself. Thank you very much, Howcast, for showing me that tip. But again, lots of the times it can be very difficult to remove the bullet itself from the epicenter of the wound itself, as most of the time it could be lodged within the bone, which of course would be responsible for fracturing. But in case you do end up getting it out of the wound, even with the fracture in place, it still would be good to get to a hospital as soon as you can, or at least to a spot where you can get some medical attention as soon as you can. But once again, bullet wounds are no laughing matter. They're no joke at all. And there's always a time where today's gun violence is certainly going to lead to much more than just simple wounds. It will lead to death, destruction, devastation. 3 Ds of disaster. So, that's pretty much what that's all about there. So, that's it for right now. But 2 days from now, let's get on with one last subject. I'm Jay Nowak, and this has been Survival of No Limits. And if you want to see more, go down on the channel. Then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.